Welcome to the Aaron Werner podcast on iCode Media. I've got my great friend and little Energizer bunny. I hope she shares some of this energy with us, Amber Dunn, Dr. Amber Dunn, on with us today. And Amber is somebody that I've grown to look up to and admire because she just doesn't know how to say no. Right? She wears lots of different hats, does lots of really cool things. And quite frankly, I'm hoping from our discussion today to steal some good ideas and just how you manage everything you do so that I could apply it to my life. So Amber, real quick, can you just intro yourself to everybody listening?
Yeah, of course, Aaron. You're so kind with those words. You're making me blush over here. My name is Dr. Amber Dunn. I have a practice in Oregon. So my optometric journey, my journey here started at Pacific University. I graduated in 2013, and I did a residency following that. After my residency, well, actually, during my residency, I opened a private practice, which is crazy, and I don't necessarily recommend that to anybody. But in all fairness, I didn't start seeing patients until after. I was lucky enough to join faculty at Pacific. I had externs. I worked in the clinic. I also had some lab sections. I loved my time at Pacific. And I have now found myself in Arizona, which I think we'll get into that a little bit more, but I still run my practice in Oregon. I have a lovely, amazing husband, super supportive, that allows me to chase my dreams. And I have 3 kids. My oldest son just enlisted in the Army, so he's going to basic training in a couple weeks, which is crazy too. But we're just living this, amazing, awesome life.
Yeah. So I told everybody that you wear lots of different hats. Right. I don't know too many doctors that own a practice in a totally different state than they choose to live in. So let's start there. What made you want to leave where your practice is and move down to Arizona? And then I want to walk through just the structures and the systems and whatnot that you have in place, because I think lots of us have very successful practices, but the idea of not being there scares us.
Yeah.
Right.
It's very
and I'm sure
scary.
it scared you too, right?
Yes, it absolutely did. But you have to be a planner. Like, to do anything successfully, you have to, it's funny because you and I were chatting before about John Acuff, and he talks about plans, and you have to have a vision, but a lot of people don't go after their goals because they can't see the final goal. And you don't have to see the final goal to be able to start working towards something that's successful. And I think that's helped me change my mindset quite a bit as well. But, my husband and I met in college. He grew up in Arizona, and we made a decision we're never moving back to Arizona. And life changes, right? Like, don't ever say never, because that's usually going to be when something's going to happen. But we bought a home, we established a life, we built a practice. Like, it was like, that was our home. And life changes, and you realize that it's not all about what you thought it was. We wanted our children to grow up with their cousins and their aunts and uncles and their grandparents. And don't get me wrong, I have family in the Portland area in Oregon, but the nieces and nephews that I have that are my kids' ages are all in Arizona. And my husband's father's getting older, his mother's getting older. And so we felt like it was appropriate for us to move our family. Now, we did not take that lightly. We took a long time. We made a decision November of 2021 that we weren't going to move until August of 2022. So we already knew we weren't moving for almost a year. And we had to put a ton of stuff in place. Now, I say a lot like, oh, I'm so lucky. Well, I created my own luck because we put things in place to make this work, because if things weren't working out the way they were, we would not be able to have moved. So I had to reach out to Pacific. I had to reach out to the board of, because I was on the board for Oregon Optometric Physicians Association. So I had to live this full transparent life, talking to my patients, talking to my staff, making sure that everybody was going to be on board. Like, hey, this is a decision we're making, but now I really need your help and your approval, your assistance to be able to make this come to fruition. And so we moved, and I will say it time and time again, it has been the best decision that my husband and I have made as a married couple ever. And has it been easy? No. Like, things are hard, but things are hard when we were living together in Oregon. And so I think we're happier, we're healthier, just so many things. So I know you asked me a couple questions and I kind of went on a tangent, but that was like how we made the decision, and then we moved. And then obviously we've had to do a lot to keep it going.
Yep. So there, a lot to unpack there, and I think you answered the questions and then gave me more more questions. But what I heard is in relating it back, right? We all have these big dreams. You're in Oregon. I want to live in Arizona. I need to keep my practice in Oregon. I want it to stay running because it's a good practice. You're part of the community. You have a team to support, and you want them to make sure that they're, you're not disrupting their life, and they get to continue to do what they want to do, and you get to continue with what you built there. But you also need for your family to move. So big goal, and you really broke it down systematically. It sounded like just piece by piece. What do I need to do every single step of the way? What systems are in place? Which ones do I need to build? Which ones do I need to refine? And then once we put those systems into test, you probably got to go back and reevaluate to make sure that they worked.
Yep.
Right. And then my guess is you probably stepped away while you were still there from as much patient care. That way you were still in person should something, arise that you need to help with, but you kind of let the process work itself out with a safety net, maybe?
Yeah, a little bit. So I had a kind of a taper set up. So I was effectively for about a year and a half in the clinic 3/4 to half time. And then by January of 2024, this is more of my like permanent schedule, which is I'm in the clinic 1 week a month. In the summer times, I'm there a little more because guess what? It's hot in Arizona. And so I can see patients more in Oregon and escape the heat and kind of be like my own little snowbird, if you will. And then I also, I choose to see patients a little bit more in December because yes, I'm a doctor, but I'm also a business owner. And so it's important. Also August because kids are trying to get ready for back to school. And so, yeah, I also have, even when I'm in the clinic, I have an admin day. So I'm there, but I'm not actually seeing patients. So I can just make sure that things are flowing. I will tell you, this has to do with my family portion of things and also the business side of things. 10 years ago, probably wouldn't be able to do this because 10 years ago it was not as easy to FaceTime or to video chat or do what we're doing as successfully as it is. So when I'm here in Arizona, I'm constantly in communication with my managers. I'm not micromanaging them, but I'm in easy communication with them. Yeah. And when they do managers meetings or staff meetings and I'm not in the office, I can Zoom in. It's really easy. On the flip side of that, when I'm in Oregon and my kids and my husband are in Arizona, like I can still tuck them into bed because I can FaceTime them. Or, if my son wants to call me on the Alexa after school and just say hi, like we can do that. And so it makes the distance so much less negatively impactful. And like I said, I couldn't have done that if we made this decision. I mean, even probably 5 years ago, it still would have been a lot more challenging than it is today.
Yep. Well, it's nice to hear how you've taken technology and applied it in a positive way. We hear so much about how horrible technology is and the cell phone fight with my children. But using it in the right way, and I agree with you, I think that, leverage those technologies and find that right balance because it can't be all one or the other. You can't parent from a FaceTime. You can't be a doctor from Zoom or run a business. But having that hybrid model probably has a lot more benefits, again, if the structures and systems and expectations are properly understood by everybody. You do a lot more.
I will agree with that. And I say that I just say it in passing, like I'm so lucky, but I'm not. I did this, I worked really hard, but everybody's dealing with staffing issues and we are too. But I will say that my associate, because I have 2 associates, a full-time associate and then a part-time associate. They are rock stars and they've been with me, my full-time for 3 years and then my associate for 1.5, I think, the part-timer. But my 2 managers who you've met, Alex, my office manager, she started the practice with me. It was her and I, and she's been with me for 10 years, celebrating this year, toward July, September, something like that. And my optical manager has been with me 7 years this month. And so although we've had our troubles with general staff, if you will, my associate doctors and my management staff have been a rock. And had I not had that leading up to us deciding to leave, I also couldn't leave because I need to have people feet on the ground in the office that actually are making sure that these policies that we've put together and are constantly evolving are actually happening because, me video chatting in to discipline an employee is like not effective. No. So, or at least I don't feel like it would be effective. And so, having what we have created is just allowing things to run the way that we need them to.
Yep. I think it's allowing things to run. It does a couple of things. One is, and I've noticed this when I've gotten to work with different practices, everybody has systems. A lot of practices will say, I don't really have a system for that. Well, you do. It probably sucks if you don't know what it is, right? It's probably not very good, but there's a system because there's habits that we create. And if they're not intentional, they just form, and they're usually the ones that just form usually aren't the ones we want. But knowing Alex and Caitlin and knowing you, and I agree with you, they're fantastic. But you've built over time an understanding of what the expectations are, what good looks like, right? So they know what a good quality, well done job looks like, whatever the task may be. But then you've also done a fantastic job of saying, hey, here's where we are, here's where we need to go, here's the parameters that need to happen, but go do it. And the cool part about go do it is now you're developing people, right?
Yeah.
You don't have employees, you have a team
Yes.
of leaders. And in that development of people, I'm curious if you can think of your numbers off the top of your head, but the more I stepped out of direct patient care and dove into my role at Vision Source, the more delegation and responsibility I had to put on my team. And quite frankly, the faster we grew and the better we did. I think I was hampering their ability to grow as people and impact the business. And when I stepped back, let them spread their wings, they flourished, the business flourished. I mean, I took full credit because, clearly it was my idea to do it all, but in reality, right, it was them being able to do what they do best and develop. Did you see the same thing?
Well, I wouldn't say that I have. I know for certain I don't have that data. But there's a couple of things that are tricky in that because we sent Alex and Caitlin. I sent Alex and Caitlin to the MDP, the Management Development Program through Vision Source. So we sent them to that 2021. So we got so much information from that, and we were implementing those things kind of at the same time as I was leaving. So, what I will say is that our growth, I'm super impressed because we went from a 2-doctor practice, basically, to a 1-doctor practice, because the way I've set up my associate doctor is she gets the week off that I'm in town in most cases. And so we are pretty much running as a 1-doctor practice, and I have an associate that works 1 day a week, so we get a little bonus there, which is great. But our 2023 growth was reduced from 22 and 21, but we still grew. And the fact that we went from a 2-doctor practice to a 1-doctor practice and we still had growth, albeit the percentage wasn't nearly as high, there was still growth, is incredible for me. And that's what lights me up and says, okay, I can keep doing this, because if the practice is failing, I can't fail those people that I left in Oregon, and I can't let that be a part of my legacy. So the fact that I'm seeing growth, albeit not as much as maybe I wanted, it's more than I think I could have expected.
Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense when you're going down and adjusting things and doing what's right, and grow. When you're reducing the number of patient care hours and you're still growing, that's a positive.
Yeah,
right. It shows you're doing something right. There's a system built in there. Yep.
Yeah.
So, no, that's I like that. So the MDP program is fantastic. Yeah, Esler actually puts that on. There's the Vision Source has its own cohort that goes through because we engage with each other and we like working together. I think that's a fantastic program. It's for those who don't know, it's a project-based 6 months, really commitment for the individuals that are involved. They've got to go down to Dallas a couple times for in-person meetings. They meet virtually a couple times. They've got projects that they need to come up with and work through the practice. So kudos to you for recognizing their potential and investing in them.
Yeah,
it's not,
it was awesome.
It's nominal to pay for the program, but having them out of the practice, paying for them to travel is a commitment on everybody's side. But I think that, as you've seen, it's certainly worth it. So now I'm curious with the, because you said you left everybody there, and I'll challenge you a little bit. I think that you just, developed a more robust support system for everybody there. Leaving them feels like you just, walked out and turned your back, and I don't think that's what happened. How did the staff initially take the idea? How did patients initially take the idea? You said you talked to everybody. What was their feedback?
Yeah, so I know that my managers were very nervous, and I just had to keep reassuring them, like, you guys, we got this, we can do this. Like, I need to do this, what's best for my family, and reminding them, like, I've done a lot of things in life, and I've really tried hard not to fail because I think them through before I do them. And so I think that my managers were a bit concerned, but once they really saw what was coming and like how we were loading it up before we were leaving, I think that put them at ease. My employees, I think, were kind of just, whatever, like, okay, well, Dr. Dunn, because I think at that point I had already initiated that yes, I was the owner and I was the doctor, but because I had my management staff really managing the staff, it wasn't as impactful that like they would come to me for all their problems, and I had already created that differentiation and communication, I guess you would say. So I think that they were kind of just whatever. Patience, it's been really fun. I have so part of my scheduling thing is what I did is I was trying to figure out which patients need to stay with me and which ones can go to my associates. And, it's been great because I've had conversations with them like, hey, I'm going to continue to manage, I call it ocular surface instability, but they're dry eye. And I tell them, I'm going to continue to manage this every 6 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, whatever that case may be. But you're going to start seeing Dr. Martell for your annual eye exams. Some of the patients I still keep with me for their annual eye exams, but others when they're like, yeah, that's great. Or if they've seen her, because she does a lot of binocular vision, traumatic brain injury, myopia management, things like that. So if I feel like they need to be with her anyway, I will assign them. And we have policies in place within our EHR that has an alert that says like see Dr. Dunn only or see Dr. Martell only. And those are overridden for an emergency, of course, but that way the staff knows when they're scheduling a patient that they know this needs to be with said doctor, either for personality reasons or whatever their diseases that we're managing. And so it's been really fun to tell them. And I have a ton of snowbirds actually in Oregon. And so, we talk about where they live in Arizona and who they see if they ever need to see anybody in Arizona. And so it's been really neat. And when I see them, they're like, are you still doing that back and forth thing? I'm like, yeah, that's like supposed to be forever. And I've only had one patient who was a little upset when he found out that I had moved, and I had been moved for over a year. And I'm like, well, I'm so sorry. He's like, well, you didn't send out an email blast. I'm like, well, I didn't think that was necessary. I've just been telling people as we go. And I said, I'm sorry your feelings were hurt, but I've seen you every time you've come in. So it's not like you even knew I was gone. But I do have that open communication with patients, especially those that are maybe going to go into surgery, because I want to be very clear, like, listen, I'm your provider. All of us work, we all work synergistically together, but it is very likely that you're not going to see me for your pre and post-op appointments. Like, unlikely that I'm going to see you. And then they're like, oh, okay, I totally get it. And, it's really filled my cup a little bit with how supportive patients are. And they're like, it's so great that you do that. And I actually redid my exam room. I put up a bunch of really big photos of my kids and my husband and my family. And so patients come in and like, oh my gosh. And they, always want to talk to me about it. And so I think, honestly, it's kind of grown my relationship with my patients better, even though I'm not there as much. So I think that's been really lovely. And, going back to the staff and management side, like giving them more autonomy and the ability to say, these are the policies that are in place, but then actually like saying, this one's not working quite as well, that they feel comfortable coming to me and saying like, we should switch this or we should change this. And we have managers meetings once a month and staff meetings once a month, but then they do staff like mini trainings once a week. And so I think having that time where I'm not there and they're able to do that has really been great.
Oh, I love that. How many staff do you have?
Well, we just hired an optometry student and another part-time. So 4. We have one that's remote. She was an employee who worked with us, but her significant other, they had to move. So now she works remote, which is awesome because she knows the staff, she knows the people. So we have 4 staff and then 2 managers and then 2 associates.
Okay. So 8 people in the office, 8 people in the office.
Yeah.
And,
which we were running off of 1 in the office with a remote staff member for the last probably 2 or 3 months. So that's been really tough. Our managers they're like, we're doing stuff we never knew we remembered how to do. It's been all hands on deck. But now we're, as of this week, actually, a little bit heavy on the staff side, which I'm not mad about.
Yeah, no, it's nice to have that little bit of a buffer. We were talking about John Acuff, you mentioned before we started the recording, and I took to heart his soundtracks book, and a couple of the soundtracks that I've adopted, I think apply here. One is knowledge beats fear, right? So just having that open communication, knowing expectations, communicating the expectations, communicating what's happening is it trumps the assumptions that we make in our head. Because I don't know about you, but when I start thinking of something, it's always negative, right? It's always going to be worst case scenario. How is this not going to work out? But if I know what's going to happen, I know I'm not going to see you for my post-op. I'm going to see, one of your other doctors. Well, I can't be afraid of that because I know what's going to happen. I might have feelings on whether I like it or not, but at least I know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. I know when you're going to be here. I know when you're not going to be here. So knowledge beats fear is one of them. And then what kept resonating in my head listening to you talk was plan the work and the work the plan. I think you did a fantastic job of sitting down and really planning out what this looks like.
Yeah. And knowing, so another thing that I stand by is without change, there can be no growth. That's not a John Acuff thing. I don't even know where I heard that from, but I live by that. But also, if you know me, I do not like change. Tell me you're going to be somewhere at a certain time, you better be there. Don't tell me you're going to, I do not do well when plans get changed or my life gets changed. But I am learning that by doing that, I am growing so much. And I think that's why my husband and I have grown so much, because we have just literally flipped tables and completely changed our lives. And it's been so amazing. And so, taking that down to a smaller level, these policies that we have in place and this plan that we put together, and now we're working the plan, we're also, as we're working the plan, we thought that was going to work out like this, but actually it's not working out so well. So what can we do to manipulate it? And, we have really good transparency with our employees. Hey, if you feel like something is not working, because we're putting together this plan and we expect you to do it this way, but you're the one implementing it. And if it doesn't seem like this is the most effective way, please communicate that with us. We might say, sorry, you need to do it this way because of X, Y, and Z, but also maybe we don't know because, we're not the ones doing it. And so, having that without change, there can be no growth. It always in the back of my mind of okay, it is okay to change. And, change is a powerful thing. Not always necessary, but it is a very powerful thing.
Yeah. So. Yep. The Myopia Collective. Cooper Vision and the AOA have partnered in a groundbreaking initiative to change the way optometrists in the U.S. treat children with myopia. The purpose of the Myopia Collective is to rally the profession of optometry and its allies to interrupt the status quo and elevate the new standard of care for children with myopia. Every individual is encouraged to become a member of the collective. By joining, you commit to taking action to help slow the progression of myopia in children. You'll receive updates and information about the collective and its work in the fight against myopia, gain access to educational opportunities and resources offered by the collective, and hear from change agents, the ambassador optometrists selected to serve as advocates for community and policy change that facilitates the mission of the collective. Scan the QR code or click on the link in the show notes to join the collective today. In the past, our focus revolved around prescribing MacuHealth or MacuHealth Plus to patients at risk of macular degeneration, while also recommending it to collegiate and professional athletes for enhanced contrast sensitivity in sports performance. However, this year's introduction of the Life Meter has been a game changer. The Life Meter revealed a concerning truth. Many of my patients have alarmingly low skin carotenoid levels, indicating potential deficiencies in essential body tissues like the retina and brain. Supported by over 30 peer-reviewed publications, Life Meter's accuracy, consistency, and effectiveness has been demonstrated across 2,000 subjects with diverse backgrounds. With this newfound insight, I can now have meaningful conversations about carotenoid levels with all of my patients, even those who may seem outwardly healthy. To learn more about this empowering technology, feel free to contact your MacuHealth representative or click on the link in the show notes. Together, let's optimize patient care and elevate their well-being. And plan change, I think, is different than surprise change, right?
Yes.
So it's planning the change, again, is that knowledge beats the fear. And then John talks about, in fact, I had Gian on. Gian is John Acuff's right-hand man. But he talked about how you dream, plan, do, and then review, right? So exactly what you were talking about. You've got this dream. We're going to put these procedures into place. We're planning it. We do it, and then we go, hey, did it work? Do we need to adjust something? What do we need to tweak?
Yeah.
Because nothing's perfect. It's constant tweaking and a constant readjusting and balancing. So I think having those systems in place is really, from an outside perspective, what I see, one of the reasons this is so successful for you is because you've built in all those little systems. So even if something doesn't go as planned, it's not a failure. You know how to, and your team knows how to circle the wagons, regroup, and adjust accordingly.
Yep.
Nice. So let's talk about the other hat that you are newly wearing here in Arizona. Well, not here, where you're at in Arizona, right? As the executive director. Tell us about this.
Yeah, so this has been really crazy. I'm a volunteer also for AOA within their structure, and I was at the mid-year meeting, so I think it's called leadership, but we were just meeting together to really figure out what we were going to do within our committees for AOA. And as I was leaving, I was talking to a doctor who I just met who is licensed in Arizona. I'm like, hey, I really need to become an AZOA member. Like, I just need to get it together and become a member. And she's like, oh, yeah, you should. Our executive director is retiring. And I was like, oh, that's a bummer, but, I'll still see what I can do. And then a couple other doctors that I was with, they were like, you should apply. And I'm like, are you crazy? Here I am today. But I'm like, are you crazy? I said, I don't know how to be an executive director. I'm like, what is that? I mean, I've been on boards, so I know what an executive director does, but do I really know what they do? And so I really, that fire inside of me after I said, are you crazy? And then I was like, well, maybe they're not. The fire inside of me was like, okay, I want to know more. So I started emailing. I looked up the job description. I emailed our executive director in Oregon to be like, hey, do you have time to talk, and can you send me what your job description is? And I actively pursued this position. I sent the association a letter of intent. And let me back up, because I had a very lengthy conversation with my husband, because I said, we moved to Arizona primarily for family. I forgot to mention this other part. For me to have a work-life balance, because I was working 70 plus hours in the office. And now here I am saying like, oh, well, I'm not working as much, so let me add another job. But it is a part-time position, which is the only reason I was able to even pursue it, that it was part-time and I could work remotely. For the most part, obviously there's meetings and things you need to be in person for, but, we had really good communication about that. And I actively pursued. I interviewed, and here I am. I'm in the boardroom right now because I was getting a bunch of work done in this morning. But we had our first board meeting a couple of days ago, and I am currently drinking from a fire hose. So I am going to bed early and waking up early because I'm exhausted. But I'm so thrilled. The board is amazing. They've welcomed me with open arms, and Stacy has done such an incredible job with this association. But I'm so proud of him for taking his opportunity to retire and for me to step into these big shoes. I've got big shoes to fill, but I come in with fresh ideas, new ideas. I come from a state that is a little bit more advanced in their scope. And another thing that I always say, and I said this in my interview, is that comparison is the thief of joy. So I'm not comparing Oregon to Arizona. I'm not comparing the old me to the new me, or my practice to somebody else's practice. Rather I'm utilizing information that I know and knowledge that is power from one association to be able to leverage that to another. And so, I don't know a lot of things, but I have a lot of support from AOA. I've got a lot of support from Vision Source. I've got a lot of support from my peers and colleagues and people that have come before me. And so, I'm on week 2, so still nice. Very, very fresh, but I feel empowered and I'm excited, and I'm sleeping a lot because I'm exhausted.
Well, I'm going to say that I don't know if I truly believe that you don't like change, because somebody who doesn't like change doesn't take on things that they're not sure if they've got that past experience. But you love learning. I think you like challenges.
I do. I like challenges.
You can have an impact.
I really do. I like pushing the needle, and I like challenges because I'm a goal setter. I like to check things off of a list, and when you put a challenge in front of me, that gives me an opportunity to figure out how can I beat and overcome this challenge, and then I get to mark it off the list.
There you go. So as with your engagement and work with the AOA and now with the AZOA as executive director, talk to us a little bit about the importance of engaging in the political side of optometry, right? And what that means for for the young docs coming out, the docs that are in the middle of their career like us, the ones that are on the tail end of their careers?
Yeah, it is so radically important. So I have been able to be involved in the political side of optometry since 2009. So I was a first year actually, I guess it was 2010, whatever. And I got to go to AOA on Capitol Hill, and it invigorated me. And I will tell you, I was shaking in my bones thinking about going to Washington, D.C., because do not talk to me about anything political, period. I don't want to hear it. When it comes to optometry, though, I will want to engage with you all day long. So going to Washington, D.C. was terrifying. But as a student being able to go, it was one of the most eye-opening moments of my life. And we are truly a politically driven profession. And at any moment, we could have anything that we've learned how to do taken away from us, or anything we've learned how to do but can't perform, we'll never be able to perform. That could go on forever. Doctors have come before us and have made such amazing paths, and we have to continue that because, like I said, it can get taken away at any time. We have to build relationships. We need to donate to AOA PAC and also your state PACs, because they do two different things. There's federal legislation and there's state legislation. And especially I have a license in Oregon, and I'm going to be able to leverage that when I'm talking to legislation in Arizona, because I am licensed to do things 1,200 miles away that I can't do here because the law won't permit it, even though I know how to do it. When I talk to students, and actually even when I talk to doctors about the importance of donating, because not everybody can physically be at the Capitol. Mm-hmm. Not everybody can physically go to AOA on Capitol Hill, like for DC, but everybody can donate. And, this is not meant to be a commercial, but it's really meant to be the importance of that. And I calculated it out, and on average, when I went to school 10 years ago, it cost me about $123 a day to go to school. And that includes Saturday and Sunday. Now, you're going to tell me that you're not willing to pay $5 a day to protect that $123 a day cost to have the education that you have, like when you were out having beverages with your friends or sleeping in or whatever you were doing. We paid a ton of money to go to school, and we need to fight to keep that going. And some people might say, I don't care about advancing the scope. Okay, but do you want to keep the scope that you have? Mm-hmm. Do you care about those coming before us? Because maybe you don't care about advancing where you're at right now, but many years ago, you couldn't even prescribe glaucoma drops, or you couldn't, do, there's certain things that we take for granted. Mm-hmm. That's an everyday thing that we do now that wasn't permitted in some states, even as early as, a couple of years ago. And so, again, from somebody who, if you start talking politics to me, I'm out. I'm gone. But this is so important, and the grassroots and building those relationships. And there's a part for everybody, because some people are good at grassroots. Some people are good at talking at the Capitol. Some people are just good at being, I am a member, I'm a dues paying member, and I donate to my PAC. And some people do all three. But I love that there's buckets, because it's not for, not everybody can do everything. And I'm, as you can tell, very passionate about this. Yes. Even though I absolutely hate asking people for money. I do not like it. But somehow I managed to become the FAR for Oregon, so I'm asking people for money all the time because I am a yes person, although I do save my best yes. That is a book. I do save my best yes. But it's just because I get fired up, and I don't want, I don't know that my kids want to do optometry, but I do know that I have a passion for teaching, and I don't want the students that I helped teach be limited on what they can do because those that came before them didn't fight hard enough, and then didn't teach them that they need to also continue the fight, because it's not going to ever end.
Yep.
So.
Yep. No, I agree.
That's really
100%.
Got me fired up, and I love it.
No, I love it. I can listen to that all day long, because I 100% agree. The only thing that I will add from my perspective is I look at my engagement and my support financially as a patient advocacy. I think that we are the best place to take the care of those patients. I've seen in Southern California and elsewhere just the backlog of patients trying to get into a system. I think large systems have their place, but the individual care is lost far too often. And the same passion I have for independent optometry and private practice, because we get to make the decisions on what's best for patients, expands to all of patient care. And if we're able and capable to take care of them, we should be able to do so.
Yeah,
they should have that choice.
You absolutely nailed it, because I mean, for a patient to get in for a chalazion removal, it might be 3 or 4 or 6 months for an ophthalmologist because they're too busy doing other more emergent things, when they could probably get into one of our offices in a couple of days, maybe a week. I mean, it depends on where you're at or what you're doing. And so access to care, and that's just one tiny example, but you're absolutely correct that access to care is critical on us maintaining our scope, and also providing it goes with access, but providing desire for doctors to want to work in rural areas. I think is really important. I mean, neither one of us work in a rural area, but there's a lot of practitioners that do and that need to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I would if my wife would be on board. She's we're both from San Diego, but she would love to have that small little house in the middle of all the other small little houses, but right next to the beach. And I would love to have the 100 acres out in the middle of nowhere. So we settled in a nice compromise in the middle of San Diego.
Perfect.
But yeah, no, I think choice is powerful, and being able to have the choice is powerful.
Correct.
I've got feelings on whether people practice to the full extent, but those are mine. But I think that choice is something we can all agree on, and not just our choice, but patients' choice too.
Absolutely.
For care. So no, 100% on board for all those reasons. And I appreciate the soapbox. I don't think we can ever hear enough of those. So dare I ask, what's next? Right? It's you've moved, you've got another practice, right? Your husband's not in the room, but I'm sure he's if he heard that, he'd be glaring daggers at me. But so what? Is there anything more? Are you looking to just really excel at all the hats you're wearing now?
I what's next? No, I have not. I mean, I need to. I mean, I did. Well, wow. I did tell the association when I applied, I said, I feel like the work that you guys want to have done here is more of a full-time position. I said, but I can't offer that to you. I said, you're hiring for a part-time. So I said, I will do my part-time duties and then we can reassess. So potentially this becoming more of a full-time job. But I made a commitment to them when I interviewed, and I made a commitment to my office that I'm not giving that up. Like, I'm not going to stop seeing patients in Oregon. So, finding, I know there's never such thing as balance, but finding, how everything is going to work out. And, I'm really trying to lean in and just being a valuable resource. And I get excited, when opportunities like this come up, like, wow, you want me on your podcast? Yes, I would love to. And just share my ideas that work for me. And, being able to be a mentor potentially to other doctors, because I have so many mentors that help me get to where I'm at and continue to grow. I'm dabbling in a little bit of lecturing. I'm lecturing at the Vision Source Exchange, or the local Vision Source state meeting in Arizona in July. So I'm excited about that. Expanding my wings a little bit there. But really, I'm trying to grow and learn. And I am a yes girl, yes, but I also try really hard not to overfill my plate. I am very mindful of that because I don't want to end up where I was before, which is where part of this communication started happening of us moving. So, I've got opportunities here and there that I want to grasp and be able to take on, and just see where this new life is going to take me, and the new people that I'm meeting, and the new adventures, and also as a side note, it's so interesting because I've worked with all these people in AOA in different capacities over the years, and now it's like I'm meeting them again for the first time because I'm in a different role. And so, I don't know, it's really neat. So fostering those relationships, building those relationships, and, I'm a people person, so I'm excited about all of that.
That's very cool. So last question, you brought up balance, and it's one word that I don't like because I think that you're chasing the impossible. And
agree.
But I do think that guardrails are important, guidelines, right? And Pirates Code, Pirates of the Caribbean, their guidelines. We watched that last night. My kids hadn't seen it. I'm a horrible parent. But so as you get opportunities to come up, what are, knowing that you want to say yes, but what's the filter, what's the guidelines that you have in place so that you can give everybody and everyone and everything the attention that's appropriate? Because we can't be everything for everybody, but you can neglect, and that's what we want to avoid.
Yes, and I love that question because immediately whenever I have an opportunity, the first thing I do is look at my calendar and to see, is that even feasible? And then the second thing I do is call my husband and I say, hey, this is the opportunity that I have. This is the time commitment, this is the potential pay, or this is what I'm going to lack on because I'm going to, have to invest whatever. This is what it's going to mean for you. Like, are you willing, like you're going to be home with the kids that day by yourself, or, and we walk through, we have kind of like a little checklist and we walk through that together. And if he says, yes, let's do it, then I go back and I, look a little deeper to be like, okay, do I want to do it? Because do I have the time to do it? Is my husband on board? And then do I actually want to do it? Because, like, for instance, I did a COPE approved talk with Pete Kehoe a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. I would like to say I'd never want to do that again. Not because of working with Pete. It was great. But going through that does not light my fire. So if you want me to speak for you, and it needs to be COPE approved, likely I'm going to say no because it was just so stressful for me. And maybe it's because I've only done one of them before, but that was an experience I know that I will likely say thank you, but no, because it was just so taxing on me. And I don't feel like I personally got the benefit out of it from the experience. So, that was kind of a sideways thing to say. But, I've learned there are a few things that I've been asked to do and I've done them. And then I've been like, I probably will say no thank you next time. Or can I help in a different way? Can I do, maybe try to spin it off and see if there's another opportunity that's a little different. So that's kind of our how we do it. And then I also really try, like the schedule thing, I really try hard not to take days out of my limited days at the clinic in Oregon. There's been a few times where I've needed to do that or adjusted things, but I try really hard to make that a solid no because, I don't want to have to reschedule patients and I don't want my staff to feel like I'm putting Gatti Vision on the back burner when that's really not what's happening. So yeah, that's the stepwise approach that I go to. My husband's my number one supporter and I couldn't do what I do without him because he runs our family and our kids and all the things when I'm gone. And if I didn't have that, there's no way that I would be at the success level that I'm at. So,
yeah, I say the same thing about Lindsay. It's without the support, without the team, whether it's the team at the practice, the team at home, your team now at AZOA, without those teams and now I'm sounding corporate, but the stakeholder buy-in, right? Yeah. Everybody who's involved, without their buy-in, and they may not love it, but everybody's on the same page. I love that approach. We use that, in my professional development with the things that I do. I bounce it off of Lindsay. When we're bringing in something new to the practice, we make sure we talk to everybody that's going to involved, and we're bringing a new technology or a new system or a new treatment, so that they are all on board. Everybody has a chance to express themselves, share their perspectives, and sometimes there's an uncomfortable conversation, right, where they say I don't want to do it, and we say no, we want to, and you work through that. But I think the outcome of that is always better off than where you started. But no, the perfect answer to a challenging question I think that we all face is how do we chase that close to elusive balance. So awesome. Well, Amber, really appreciate the time, and I was teasing you before your mug, right? Never done, and love the motto, love the playing in of the branding of the Dunn, and knowing you as I know you, I someday I think you will be done, but I think it'll be a long way for me here, and I you're like me, we enjoy that road, we enjoy that journey.
Yep.
So,
you're awesome.
Well, thanks very much. Yeah, thank you very much for the time and for sharing that and being an inspiration on how you can wear all those different hats successfully.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This was a pleasure, and I always like any opportunity to be able to see you, chat with you, and I oftentimes talk too fast, too much, and too long, and this created an opportunity where I had to be set amount of time. So there it is.
Yep. New challenges. Awesome. Well, until next time. Take care.
Thank you.